name's Andy Taylor, and I'm joined just by Stuart Andrew. Not that you're just Stuart Andrew, but we don't have Isaac with us this week because he's tied up with many things that he's up to nowadays. But still, we're here to give you our thoughts on the weekend's action from week 5 last week, and now we head into week 6, and it's just flying by, and soon we'll be at Christmas and all that sort of stuff. So time's flying by for us, but we're still enjoying trying to bring in the analysis of the last week, and there was plenty of things to talk about, Stuart, over the last weekend. But you had a game to ref at the weekend, didn't you? You were at the high-scoring affair of the Birmingham versus Exeter on the Saturday night, weren't you?
Yeah, it was. It started off fairly damp, but then it dried up, and it was actually a fairly dry evening fixture, as you say. There wasn't many points in it. Both teams were playing some really hard-hitting defence. Just got chatting to a couple of the Exeter coaches, and they were missing a QB for the day, so they were running some sort of flex bone offence, run offence. Birmingham shut it down quite well, to be fair to them. But yeah, interesting to get back out on the field and taking some live football rather than just catching up on live streams after the events have happened.
And we'll get into a result a little bit later on that's closer to your heart that you were very, very excited to see happen over the weekend. And if you're a gladiator, you might not want to listen to that bit. So before we get into that, shall we have a little look at the results that happened in the Premier tier? So if we pull up our handy graphic that we share on our socials, that comes in handy for this sort of thing. And again, we're on YouTube, so if you are listening in, come and have a little look and come onto our YouTube channel and have a look at the scores that we have it. But we'll try and keep it suitable for our audio listeners as well. And so when we look at the Premier tier, let's talk about what happened in the National League, right? So we wondered in the preview whether we would get a close game between Durham and UWE. Obviously, UWE having to do a very big journey up to Durham, and Durham showing some life in the National League this year, with certainly the week before beating Loughborough at home. As it turned out, a bit of a one-sided affair by the looks of it, certainly by the score.
Yeah, we sort of weren't sure which way this would go, how close it would be, what with Durham holding gold to 16-22 a few weeks ago. But it looks like UWE travelled well. Looks like they got off to a good start. It was live streamed, but I haven't had a chance to catch it. I know they are all up still on Durham TV, so we can go back and watch it whenever we really want. But the Bullets just did Bullets things, put up 54 points. Durham managed to get 14, but yeah, it looks like it's going to start to wind itself down now to a gold Bullets 1-2, and it's just all going to come back round to that rematch down in up in Nottingham. They played down in UWE before, didn't they? Up in Nottingham, which again is likely to be live streamed. I know that Nottingham have a great streaming product up there. So yeah, I think the Prem National is going to come down to the gold versus Bullets, depending on what BUCS do for playoffs in the Prem National. We don't know yet.
Certainly in the first 3 games of this year, most teams have played 3. Obviously, Loughborough have got one, only 2 this year. But we seem to have found 2 tiers, haven't we, within the league? Obviously, you could say 3 if you put Beckett by themselves based on their first 3 games. But it looks like, as you say, a gold UWE top tier, a Durham Loughborough, and then Leeds Beckett have obviously struggled this year. It's lending itself to a really fascinating end of the season, isn't it? Even though it feels like we only started 5 minutes ago, there's 1 point in it, isn't there? Really, in this head-to-head matchup between UWE and Gold, and that repeat fixture is going to be juicy when it comes to the Nottingham, isn't it? Are you disappointed or surprised to see that there was such a margin in 2 or between the 2 sides at the weekend, or is it more just maybe UWE have found their footing this year?
No, I don't think so. Certainly for this standalone fixture, if you look back to last year's BUCS final, UWE sort of blew Durham away, didn't they? I don't think Durham scored a point in the final, and they've managed to put up 14 against them last weekend. So there's progression there for Durham, and it's just a case of now let's see what they can do. From my knowledge of previous football and how playoffs work, they might do 1 plays 4, 2 plays 3, and then the last 2 go into a national final. Wild speculation. It's all unofficial, as all of our stuff is, until we can say it's official. But yeah, it may well be that we have to see this battle again as a semi-final, and then the winner will take on Gold if they remain unbeaten for the rest of the year.
Mm-hmm. So that's UE came out 54-14 victors over Durham at the weekend, and that sets up a nice full card this weekend, which we'll get into in a little while. But let's have a look at the other Premiership tier divisions that we've got across the weekend. So we had Nottingham Trent came out 26-20 winners against Leeds Griffins, who were high flying when it came to scoring points in their first few games, but we knew that Nottingham Trent had a reasonable defence, and they managed to edge out Leeds in this affair in the north.
Yeah, I think I let Isaac have game of the week for this one, didn't I? or he picked it, depending on which way around you want to look at it. And he picked a stonker, didn't he? So these two collided in this. I want to say the semi-final last year. It would have been the Northern final, I think, but the semi-final. And thinking back, I covered that game, and it was pretty damn good back then. And it looks like it was exactly the same this year, just in a different tier. We're back up into the Prem now, and these guys are competing for a Premiership title. It might be Premiership North, but they'll still call it a Premiership title. So, yeah, it looks like it was a really good game. Nottingham, I believe, still play on grass. So, they're probably one of the only Premiership teams to play on grass. So, yeah, it looks like it was probably a wet day in Nottingham, and their field is notoriously poor to handle the weather. So, yeah, it looks like it was a really close game. I'd be honest, I haven't seen anything of it. I'm literally just looking at the 26-20 scoreline. I haven't seen a breakdown, a box score or anything like that, any stats from it. It's not something that we're getting just yet. So, yeah, as you say, the Griffins were flying. They were probably looking to this fixture to say, look, let's try and really, really attack this one, remain unbeaten and set ourselves at the top of the table here. But in the end, Trent have got the better of them, and it keeps this division. There's 3 teams at the top now with a single loss kind of between each other. So, yeah, looks like this could be an interesting top of the table on that one.
Yeah, it shapes up nicely over the next couple of weeks for sure, and we'll get into what's happening this weekend in a little while as well. And we obviously touched upon the Lions Demons game in the south, so we could probably brush over that a little bit. But Exeter came out 8-0 victors, visiting Birmingham, getting their first win of Premiership action. So congratulations to them for doing that. And then we had Portsmouth overcame Cardiff at home 32-15. So again, it seems like there's some tiers setting themselves up in the Premiership South after the last weekend's results. What did you think of what we saw?
I was chatting to a couple of the Birmingham coaches about Cardiff because of how Birmingham sort of overturned that week 1 loss to them. And they said that the personnel was considerably different. And having seen Cardiff against SGS, I know that they did have a few injuries. So is that taking its toll on Cardiff? Reading week, did they not travel quite so well to Birmingham, which is affecting the result? But it looks like another tough trip down to Portsmouth also hasn't come out in their favour. Portsmouth, who they've been in the Premiership for a few years, and they have come out with a couple of results this year. So they beat Exeter. Everybody seems to be taking wins off of each other in this division. Lost to SGS, so 1-1. But can you gauge from that? So from this, I think it starts to settle this table a little bit more, even though it looks like it's kind of muddy in the middle with SGS at the top. I kind of think that it will be kind of as we see it now, with 2, 3, 4, and 5 kind of set, I think, if I'm honest.
Well, in a couple of weeks, we have Birmingham versus Portsmouth, so we might have more of a clearer idea as to how good Portsmouth are. But the only team that they've lost to are obviously SGS, right? So they've beaten Exeter, they've beaten Cardiff, Exeter have beaten Birmingham. So we could probably make an educated guess that Portsmouth will come out on top of Birmingham based on current results, but that's obviously a wild speculation. So it feels like we've got SGS running away with it, and a bit of a murky rest of the division, haven't we? So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out over the next few weeks.
It is in Birmingham, that clash, so it depends on travel again. The Premiership is it is the best teams want to be in that division, so travel can be a factor in these sort of fixtures. So it's not like back in the day where we used to play in the MAC conference, the Midlands Athletic Conference, and it was literally Birmingham, Loughborough, Warwick, Coventry, Worcester, all of your Midlands teams.
Forward rolls to each other.
Yeah, it was like 45 minutes max on a bus journey. Yeah. There's a little throwback for anybody who was involved in MAC football. But yeah, now we've got BUCS, we've got tiers, we've got divisions, we've got everything we need to facilitate high quality football, should I say, at the highest level anyway. The teams tend to find themselves travelling a little bit further.
Brilliant. So let's have a little look at what went on in Tier 1 then, because we had a number of fixtures across all divisions. I think we had, we had all divisions in action, didn't we? I think it was Tier 2 where we had a division off. But yeah, what stood out to you in Tier 1 then? Because we had some interesting results, didn't we, throughout? We didn't get to see UEA versus UCL. We understand it's to do with lack of coaches on the UCL behalf, so it'll be interesting to see what BUCS do with that, whether they reschedule or whether they reward it to presumably UEA. But take us through the others, Stuart. What did you see this week that stood out to you?
I'm going to start off with a humble brag. I'm going to pick my game of the week. So I went with Coventry Hull. The sort of, I think we kind of called it the basement battle in the Midlands Yorks. Coventry have now won a game, which is not the only team to do that this weekend. But Coventry have now won a game, so we can get that sort of out of their closet now and say, yeah, we can compete, we can stay in this division. They came out 16-14 winners over Hull. I think it was rather wet conditions in the Midlands in Coventry on Sunday, but they've got a nice setup, to be fair, at their sports fields. And Isaac's game of the week was, I want to say he went with MMU Northumbria, didn't he?
I think he did, yeah.
I didn't write it down. I've written mine down just to make sure I can humble brag.
I'm pretty sure he did, yeah.
Isaac, I'm sorry if I'm getting that wrong. It is, yeah. Isaac, sorry if I'm getting that wrong. You can comment below or rip me next week when you're back. But yeah, the Mustangs took care of business and looking to go back to back to get Premiership next year. There's a massive game coming up next weekend that we'll come on to. But yeah, they took care of business against the Eagles 38-6. In Scotland, Heriot Watt continue to sort of stand out. As I said, sort of last week's video podcast, having been a newer program, yes, they went down to the Tigers, but 1914's for a newish program is really, really strong, competitive. Sometimes you see they get the good results against the weaker teams. Obviously, we've just spoken about Edinburgh, Aberdeen Bulls, but they're competing against the stronger teams in this division now as well, which is good. The other thing that jumps off is that Bath Killer Bees Swansea game. Totally. You go to an American football game to see points and offense and high flying scores, and then you get a safety, and that's it. So, and
I believe that was a bad centre snap. I think Isaac was telling me that was just a bad snap from the centre, I believe, that flew over the I don't know if it was a quarterback or punter. I don't know that for sure, but that's I think that's what I heard from the weekend. So that's a real close one. And Swansea are a bit of an anomaly, aren't they? Because they don't know how to score, but they definitely don't know how to concede either.
No, it seems to be like, it's always easier to put an offense together, but it seems their defense has really, really clicked this season, and their offense quite hasn't. But you know, that tends to be how safeties are conceded in British American football. Sometimes the long snappers are a tough set of people to find. There's not many decent long snappers around the country, especially at uni football. It's a difficult skill, and with the conditions we see at university football, again, it's not really conducive to snapping the ball 10, 15 yards deep. So yeah, it happens. It happened in the Bournemouth game a couple of weeks ago, or last week, I think it was. Bournemouth, another side who continued to fly high at the top of their division after beating Bristol. You sort of see them getting a high seed in Tier 1 for the playoffs. Again, depending on how BUCS want to do it. And then Brunel, again, coming out with a really high scoring affair.
They're for real, aren't they? We wondered, didn't we? Because obviously Oxford came out and took it to Reading 2 weeks ago, and we didn't know whether that was a Reading thing or an Oxford thing. I think we found out that actually Brunel are the class of that division with that result, right?
I think we might see Brunel and Bournemouth fighting it out for the 1 seed in the south. And then there's a couple of other teams in and around there. But yeah, I sort of see those two really wanting to host home playoff games.
And at the moment, that would be Bournemouth, wouldn't it? Because the tiebreaker that they would beat them on would be the average points conceded, and they're conceding a meagre less than 1 a game, having only conceded 2 points this season. So that would be tough to beat. But they're not doing too badly at all. And KCL took it to Kent, which probably would have surprised a few, maybe, because obviously Kent have done okay in their first couple of games. But then KCL travelled and seemingly they like winning by just about 20 points, don't they? A couple of scores and finishing off there, and they sit comfortably at the top now with a head-to-head against the Kent Falcons, so they're doing all right for themselves there. Only conceding 4
maybe
points
Kent
a game
are just
themselves.
a great road. Maybe Kent are just a great road team and not very good at home because they won their 2 away games and lost their home game. So yeah, maybe Kent. Maybe Kent just want to always play away.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. Fair observation for sure, and we'll see how we get on with the rest of the division because, as we know, we've had a couple of cancellations across both those southeastern divisions, haven't we? And it's tricky to analyse. Let's have a little look at Tier 2 then. Quite a surprise although Lancaster were the pre-season favourites, Staffordshire have come out and scored quite handily. We then had Edge Hill beat Lancaster in Lancaster the week before, and so that obviously gave them a kick up the backside because they came out and romped home against Staffordshire Stallions 31-6.
Yeah, it's another one of those sort of round robin tournaments, isn't it, where everybody's kind of beating everybody and taking wins and losses off everybody. But surprised to see Staffordshire not score 27 because Isaac pointed out they'd scored 27 in both their previous games. Yeah, if they'd have put 27 points up, it would have made this a really interesting game, 27-31, wouldn't it? But no, it looks like Lancaster come out of the traps flying. And started to really, really attack Staffordshire and get the points on the board and come out eventual winners 31-6.
Yeah, and we promised that we would give you the time for the result that you really wanted to talk about, I'm sure. And if you are a Gloucester Gladiator, you can skip over for a minute or so because your Worcester Royals, your alma mater, ended up winning 12-8 in Gloucester. So we knew that we said in our text thread, didn't we, that was a big game, a big result for you. And, I'm sure it sounds like that they deserved the win. But if you look at Gloucester's social media, for instance.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to correct you. They're definitely not my Worcester Royals anymore. Maybe at heart, but there's a lot. There's a lot of good people that are now running that club, and have run it for the last few years, despite not getting a win on the board. So I was kind of trying to look back through my history, and I contacted a couple of the guys, and apparently it's their first win since 2019. So yeah,
Wow.
Congratulations to those guys, but the Gladiators are probably showing them a big thumbs down, which is ironically a trend that they were trying to put on social media, and Worcester kind of nipped back at them a little bit. But yeah, you saw the post from the Gloucester Glads. They were like, the better team on the day, the team that wanted it more, they won it. And kudos to teams that hold their hands up and say that sort of thing, because not many teams do. They all look for external factors that they lost games for reasons. And, it's not very often you see that humbleness and that honesty come out of football clubs. So it's a heated rivalry, but again, it's not like it's life or death. It's just American football. We all have studies to go on Monday mornings. I'm sure the Royals guys had a couple of drinks in certain bars in Worcester. So yeah, it's a good win for them. It is only one win. It's a long season, and it's only one loss for the Gladiators. I'm sure they'll be looking ahead and licking their wounds and wanting to go again. So yeah, it's a fantastic result. It's a fantastic weekend for them. I enjoyed seeing it when I sat down after work on Sunday afternoon and thought, wow, okay, yeah. Can I see them going on and winning the division and getting promoted? No, quite frankly. But yeah, great weekend. But there were a handful of other games. The Bath Spa Bulldogs, Aberystwyth, their game got called off because apparently an external groundsman marked the pitch wrong, which is an interesting excuse. Yeah, Surrey kind of took care of Royal Holloway in the south. My game of the week, I picked Imperial Kingston. Again, another close affair, two ex-Premiership teams. I was trying to tell somebody else this and they didn't believe me. But yeah, another really close game in the south. I have a feeling that Isaac went for Lincolnshire Derby, or did he go Staffs
Yeah,
Lancs?
he did. Yeah, I think he did because he was. I think what we didn't know was who was going to be the class of this division. So we obviously hadn't seen Derby for a little while, and then they turned up and they took it to ARU. Was it a couple of weeks before? Or
yes, I think so.
Yeah, it was the week before. They romped home against ARU, and then we wondered, and Lincoln were obviously 2-0 at that point. So who was going to stick their neck out when it comes to that division? And at the moment, the ball is in Derby's court, isn't it? Because they now have that head-to-head, and we've got Lincoln and Derby sitting at the top. So looks like it was Derby for real this year, but still a long way to go, as you've pointed out a number of times. It's hard to analyse this so early on, but at the moment, we've definitely got that class of that division in Derby and Lincoln, haven't we?
Looks like it, yeah.
Yeah, and it's interesting because on the face of it, Kingston look like they're running away with the division, but we've got to caveat that with the fact that City St George haven't really finished a game yet, have they? We've got Imperial, who again, although they played Kingston, they didn't play their first game, so they had a bit of a false start. How much does that affect their preparation? So it'll be interesting to see how this division plays out, because it looks like Kingston are the class, but that might be just a bit of an early statement, premature statement, shall we say?
Maybe.
Well, they sit there after their 27-6 win. They sit there on 6 points, and then the nearest guys are City St George on 3. So we can see that slightly confidently at the moment.
Yeah, based on what we have to go off.
Yeah, exactly. The data points that I point out all the time, of course. So yeah, an interesting week nonetheless. So we had some surprises, we had some not so surprises. Some people really standing out as the class of their division. So interesting to see what this week will bring, and let's get into that now, because we should have a little look at what we've got ahead. I know you've come with put the right graphic up, Andy. I know you've come away with your own games of the week. What stood out to me in the Premier tier, and I think I said this to you offline, is that could we have multiple one-sided affairs this week? Might be a bit harsh to say that out loud, but we've got a number of top versus bottom, and and we've got a number of data points to point out whether we've got some potentially one-sided affairs this week in the Premier League. But let us know what your thoughts are. Any games of the week in this tier?
Yeah, saying it out loud, I potentially think you're correct. I think I might go for the closest game that I can see happening, and that's going to be the Loughborough Nottingham Gold game.
Yeah.
I say closest. I don't know how far apart that gap is going to be. Trent Raptors. It has the potential to be a blowout, but it's a really, really early game. So again, it depends on weather conditions. I think that's going to be my main caveat with this weekend. The fact that we've seen snow Monday, Tuesday in the week, the forecast for the weekend is still not great. So I feel fairly confident in saying this time next week, I'll be saying, we had a few cancellations this weekend, didn't we, Andy?
Yeah.
So, yeah. Especially as we get sort of down the tier ones, tier twos, I can see groundsmen really wanting to protect their fields and go, look, it's very, very wet, you're not playing. Or it's still covered in snow and ice, you're not playing. And if it's a safety thing, fair enough, it's got to be done. So, yeah, Loughborough's 3G. We shouldn't see a forfeit, we shouldn't see a postponement there. We almost definitely won't see a forfeiture. We probably won't see a live stream in the Premier Tier this weekend either, unfortunately.
Yeah. Unfortunately.
None of these teams are prone to live streaming. I don't think SGS have their own setup to live stream yet, so I don't think their game will be covered. That could potentially be another quality game. SGS haven't really exploded like they normally have in previous years. They've sort of, shone, but not exploded. I still think they'll take care of business over Birmingham, based on what I've seen from both of those teams this year. But yeah, for the purpose of the record, I've written down Loughborough Nottingham Gold as my game of the week.
Yeah, no, that's fair. And other than those games that are playing on 3G, which would have to be a nice 3G to not be an ice rink as well, obviously, but we could probably be looking at low-scoring affairs, so we might not see. We might see closer because of low scoring, but not necessarily closer in terms of competition. But we'll see how we do over the weekend, and we'll be reviewing it all next week for sure. Having a little look at Tier 1 ahead. So we've got a busy slate at Tier 1, haven't we? That's almost a full slate. There's a number that stand out to me. I won't steal your thunder because you're the one who brings the game of the week. So give us your thoughts, and then I'll got a couple of ideas myself.
This is the moment where Isaac is squinting at this graphic on his phone, isn't it? Because it's literally Noah's Ark, it's 2x2 in each of the divisions. So, yeah, if you're a lover of Tier 1 football, this is your weekend. I've picked out 2 games from this weekend, one for me and one on Isaac's behalf. I feel that he would have gone for the Mustangs UClan Rams game. Obviously, we know it's his favourite division. We know that these two teams are really, really competitive in this division. They've both been fairly explosive on offense. It's just going to be interesting to see whether either of these teams' defenses buckle against the other's offense, because we've got Northumbria having only conceded 6 and UClan only conceding 14. So it's going to be a case of, okay, do both teams continue to score heavily and we end up with a 35, 40 something game? Or is this a time where both defenses stay stout and we end up with a 2-0, a 6-0, a 6-6 or something like that? So if Isaac hadn't have picked that game in his absence, I probably would have done. But I've gone from one in the Scottish tier. I think that Heriot Watt versus Edinburgh Napier, the sort of battle for the top of that division, I think that's going to be an interesting one, especially at Heriot Watt. Can they hold firm at home? Can they get their heads and neck above Edinburgh before the return fixture after Christmas, I think it is? I don't think they'll face again this side of Christmas. Again, Scotland, notorious for fantastic, beautiful weather. Whether we see these games go ahead, I don't know. I'm not sure whether it looks, judging by the kickoff times, they may well be head-to-head. And if they are, I have a feeling that Edinburgh play on 3G. So it might be that Edinburgh Stirling play first and then Heriot Edinburgh play second. So it may well be
like a double header.
That's a double header game on 3G. So this beautiful Scottish weather that we get, or they get, I don't, not down in the Midlands. That beautiful Scottish weather that they get won't affect them. So that's my personal game of the week. Looking down the slate,
Swansea Bournemouth we talked about, didn't we, offline, didn't we, where you've got a team that can't score but can't concede against a team that can score and can't concede. So, you get the feeling it might be a one-sided affair. Bournemouth have obviously got to travel up to Swansea, so that's going to be easier said than done. I think it looks like Swansea play on grass as well. Might be a threat, but that'll be that. I'm interested to see what happens in that one, to see if Bournemouth can keep up appearances that they have started with, which is around about 30 points a game, isn't it? In that division, they're doing really, really well.
When we get down to the south, it'd be interesting to see whether UCL play this weekend. Whether they've got a coach available, whether they have found a coach to put on their roster. Again, slightly speculating, only based on what we've read on socials. We haven't actually contacted anybody for any sort of statement. But it's whether they face it off against Essex on Sunday morning. Kent UEA, that's kind of a flip of the fixture that we spoke about earlier on in the year, where they kind of split the home and the away games. And UEA's home game was fairly close. So that'd probably be another one that I keep my eye on.
It's an opportunity for obviously to Kent to retake that top spot with King's College not playing this week, but they'll obviously have that head-to-head going against them. I'm sure Hertfordshire will be looking to use their game against Reading as a bounce-back game, because they played very well in their first game, didn't they? And then came up against Brunel, and that ended up looking like it was a relatively good game, 28-14. So they travel to Reading this time to see if they can bounce back from that. So I'm interested. I'll be looking, obviously up here in the north. I'll be interested in that northern division for sure, the same way Isaac is. But it'll be interesting to see what happens in the southwest division, because Bournemouth have put their hand up and said we're the class of the division. They'll need to travel to Swansea and prove that again, won't they, against what looks like a tough defence. So it'll be interesting to see. And then, last but by no means least, let's have a little look at Tier 2. Quite a lot less games this week. We've got a number of standout fixtures for sure, albeit a mixed bag across the tier. So what stands out to you?
I've gone back to my battle at the bottom type mantra for my game of the week. I'm going for the Northeastern. I'm going Sunderland, York St John's. Both teams are yet to get off the board in terms of victories. Granted, they have only played one game each. So, somebody's going to want to win that game. I don't know records as well as I do around me. So I don't know whether Sunderland and York have any victories previously in the last few years. It's not something I've teed myself up with. But I've picked this one to go, okay, one of these teams is going to want to pull themselves away from the bottom of that division. There is no obvious relegation in Tier 2. But, if one of them wants to perhaps push for playoff football, perhaps, that'd be interesting to see. And then the rest of the games, I keep trying to spell De Montfort in one go rather than just writing DMU, and I think I finally nailed it this weekend. BUCS like to use the full university names, which is fine, I don't mind, which is why some of the time I'm not abbreviating them. I'm leaving them as they are. But do I see them competing against the Derby team that have come out so far this year? Probably not, if I'm honest. I see Derby taking that one. Edge Hill Kiel, again, it's another bottom of the table sort of clash. One of those teams, Edge Hill already have that one victory, but one of those teams, if Kiel can take it, Kiel will be like, okay, this makes this division even more confusing, because it'll be 2-1, 2-1, 1-2, 1-2, right? Yeah. So there's a lot of games that have potential to be fairly close, but again, in Tier 2, with the weather conditions, will that be a leveler, or will we see the sort of blowout scores occasionally that we've seen?
I'd have thought if you're Edge Hill and you don't win that, but on the back of that surprise victory that they had against Lancaster, I wouldn't be surprised if they'd be very disappointed, right? They've got an opportunity, actually, if they come away with that victory, to be top of the table, because they'll be tied on points with Staff and Lancaster, but they'll have the head-to-head over Lancaster, who have the head-to-head over Staffs. So they'll be sitting
Yeah,
right there pretty if they can come away with it. So I think I wouldn't be surprised if Huss and company will be really disappointed if they don't come away with that victory. But I take your point, because at the end of the day, it's they haven't shown that they are a team that can stick their neck out and take hold of the division. I'm interested to see what happens in the southeast, because we mentioned it in our analysis of this week. I don't really know what's going on, do we, at the moment?
no.
We're trying to figure out who's who in the division, and hopefully both of these games go ahead, and hopefully both of these games finish. Because we've got a lot of asterisks around this division, haven't we? And we see Greenwich, who are now 0-1, Canterbury, who are technically 0-2, and then we've got Quimble and City St George's, who are sitting there 2-3 in the division, but that's almost by default because of the way things have fell, hasn't it? So I'll be delighted to get some data points that can give us a bit of an idea of what's going on down there in the Southeast Division.
Yeah, I think the fact that games haven't been finishing for one reason or another, or haven't, taken place, I think that's kind of muddying the waters a little bit down in the sort of the southeastern. But as we get closer and closer to Christmas, and then afterwards, after the Christmas break, we start to get the reverse fixtures, I feel like we will be able to be a little bit more analytical of that division, similar to what we've been for the rest.
Yeah, 100%. No, so we've got a good slate of games again. Hopefully, all games can go ahead. As you say, we've got the weather threat for this weekend, amongst other things that go on in BUCS football, for sure. And I think it'll be a really good weekend. Have we got anything else coming up other than BUCS this weekend? I don't think we have, do we?
I've not seen anything. No.
No, I don't think so. Because we had the under-17s obviously came out victorious in Spain last week, which is great to see. They came away 32-23 winners in Zaragoza, didn't they? Which is just amazing. You can catch the live stream; it's still up there if you want to go and have a watch of it. It's great to see the future traveling and taking it to what probably is a good Spain team. And then we obviously had the WFFL, didn't we, the last weekend? And I know Aaron and Vic were going to record on Monday, but I think they had some illness in that household, so they'll be bringing you their thoughts to that down the line. Anything else that we need to get to before we get out of here, Stuart?
Not that I can think of. We haven't heard of many live streams this weekend, as I said earlier. So if you guys are planning to live stream, share the link with us, drop into our DMs. We'll get it shared Saturday morning, Sunday morning, depending on when you're playing. There's one fixture that we still don't have a kickoff time for. It's still not on BUCS or across socials. So I've put TBC on that one. If we get a kickoff time before the fixtures go out, we'll try and put that on the graphic. And then myself and Isaac will get the preview article sorted, get that out end of the week ahead of games at the weekend.
Yeah. Yes, please do. If you're listening or watching, please go over to our website. We've got all the results on there. All the standings are updated across all formats, those that are active and those that are now dormant for a few months. And then we will get you some articles up over the weekend. We've obviously had flag football world rankings updated as well from IFAF, and we'll provide you with that info. And I'm sure lots to talk about in the world of flag that Mr. and Mrs. Kiwi will get to in due course, I'm sure. For now, though, thank you very much, Stuart, for your time and giving your thoughts. And thank you, everyone, for listening and joining us as we go through BUCS and we head into week 6. So once again, always surprised by where we're at already in this season. And sooner rather than later, it'll be the Christmas break. So thank you very much for your time, and we'll catch you again soon.